Hey there, my name is Ash Shukla, and I'd like to say namaste and welcome to Financial Chakras podcast, Abundance Through Alignment. And today we have a guest here who is going to take you from clarity, give you total clarity from any type of chaos you may be facing in your life. And my friend, with that in mind, I want to say thank you so much for joining. And as always, I say that I love you. Here we go. Let's get started, guys. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here, and I really appreciate all of you, those of you joining me today, because it is going to be a special podcast that we are doing, with my friend over here. His name is David Prosper. Just like he says Prosper, his last name is exactly what he does. And my friend, there are very few people, David, who does exactly what they do, and their last name matches them perfectly. So with that in mind, David, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you very much, and welcome to Financial Chakras podcast. Okay, my friend,
Oh,
go ahead, my friend.
it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. I'm glad that you're here. And today we are really going to discuss, we're going to dive into some things about, how does somebody get clarity, right? Because before we get there though, I was, as we were chatting and you mentioned something to me, which I thought was kind of cool. Okay. And when it comes to clarity that most people have, right? And you've been told since you were a child, and they told you a name, right? They gave you a name. What was the name that they gave you?
Past, Pastor Prosper.
Pastor Prosper. Okay, I like that. Pastor Prosper. I love that. Okay. So my friend, so why did they give you the name though?
That's a good question. So they gave me the name because oftentimes, like my mother was a pastor, so I grew up a pastor's son. But it was when the kids around me or the adults around me would like run into a moment where they got stuck, and it was just like, Pastor Prosper, do you have a word for us? And it came across as a joke, and I would like play around as a kid, but I would start saying some things that started uncovering what was keeping them from that objective. And it was not just the things that I said, it was the questions that I asked. So I just like started asking questions like, okay, you said you're stuck. What is keeping you from your next step? Well, this. Okay. All right. So through the process of elimination, we start figuring out, okay, what can you do right now? So it's literally because I started asking more questions as a kid, something that was demonized to do, because in school they teach you answer questions and don't ask all the questions. So yeah, since as a 13-year-old, I would ask a lot of questions, and it would get people from a place to a place, and it would move them from uncertainty to clarity.
Wow. So you were able to, and they say that we do things based on how we talk to ourselves, right? They
Hmm.
say that we do things based on our, at least the way I teach a lot of my content is it's about feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and then you take the action. So you're saying that by formulating the right questions, right, you're able to shift their feelings and really take them into their, like, and also clarify their thoughts to help them move forward in the next step. Is that what you're saying?
110%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so how long you been doing this, buddy?
I've been doing this for over, I would say over 25 years now, like
Oh,
consecutively over 25 years helping people get clear.
really?
Yes.
Whoa. 25 years is a long time, my friend.
Yes.
Long
It's been a
time.
long time.
Yeah. So since you were a child, this was like a curiosity for you, pretty much.
Yes. Yes.
And,
And
and
my
it,
and my mother
okay.
would always joke around and say he's the leader of the family, even though I was the baby of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I was always obsessed. It was an obsession. Like, why do things work the way they work? Why are people the
Mm-hmm.
way they are? Why, like, what's our limitation? What? So my obsession at such an early age of figuring out how things became this thing that I get to do now.
I love that, my friend. I love that. So when it comes to the curiosity when you were a child, I can only imagine, when you were a child, and how what were some of the things you were doing as a child, and to come to this path and really understand, right? Because and why did you do that?
Yeah, such a great question. I would say the biggest thing, I was in sports as a kid. My mother put me in football and track, but she took it a step further because I grew up in the projects of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and where I'm from, like you're either dead or in jail by 18. So my mother wanted to give me a fighting chance to get out of the situation that we were in. So we were overly involved in church. So I was a part of the youth ministry, and as a kid, I would see leaders lead, and I would see the ineffectiveness about their leadership styles and getting people to a place from a place, or how they communicate, and it would charge the people negatively. And I'm like, okay, like, why are they communicating in this way that makes people feel a certain way? Like, not it draws them. So I was observant, and through my observation, I started questioning things and being part of these different things. I was like, okay, if I were to run things, how would I do things differently? And I started like
Mm.
putting myself in the game. In high school, I was the vice president of student government while I was playing football. So like I started putting myself more into the arena because I wanted to test these theories out. And like you said, we tend to talk to people the way we talk to ourselves. So I'm always questioning why I believe what I believe. Where does this
Mm.
belief come from? And how can I apply what I now know?
Wow, I love that, and that's so profound. And I want to just acknowledge that there are some people here. There were a couple of people. If you have Gastrate, hey Gastrate, welcome, my friend. I appreciate you
Gaston
being.
Harrigan, that's my mentor. Like
That's
when I
your
was a kid.
mentor.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
hey Gastrate, good to meet you, my friend. I would love to
That's
meet you, just so you know. Okay, but that's great. That's great, my friend. So look, this is such an amazing thing that you're doing, and then the clarity, and then the path that you are carving out for people. I really love that because there are so many people, especially in the chaotic world that we are in, and all the things that are going on all over the world, not just here but all over the world, right? We can only imagine, like how many people are actually lost,
yeah.
right? Lost their way. Do you find that quite often though?
Yeah. It's a conditioning thing. And sadly, uh it's how the system is working. And as an outlier, like a lot of people, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of people are lost. I believe a lot of people are overwhelmed with a lot of information
Okay, I like the
because
idea.
because nowadays, like you just, you can use ChatGPT, you can use Google, like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
like the encyclopedia era.
right.
But so we're just overwhelmed with information and everything seems to be urgent. So I
Right.
think we're analysis by paralysis more than loss.
I see. Okay, I love that analogy, and I love the way you're putting that. Right, you are correct that people are more overwhelmed than anything else. Right. So when it comes to overwhelm, what are some of the symptoms you find people have? When they are getting overwhelmed. What are the
Hmm.
early symptoms, and what does it do to them down the road?
That is such a good question. So the outwardly system when someone's overwhelmed is initially frustration. They're frustrated
Really?
and they're irritated. So it's like irritable. They're just like, ugh. And the next thing is they 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 have like an ongoing discouragement. They
Okay.
don't feel like they're making progress. So that's the external. You just see them like they have like this heaviness. Internally, you start seeing individuals like they go through the stories and the battles that I'm not good enough because I'm not making the progress that I want to make. Or
Mm,
they start feeling shame because they should have been at a certain level and standard in their life and they haven't made it. Or they feel guilty because they've made some decisions that has set them on a path that doesn't yield the results that they want. So the internal battles, the external like symptoms, like these two worlds colliding, it's a bad recipe. That's a potluck I wouldn't want to go to.
wow, wow, wow. I love that. I love that, right? So this internal battle that people are facing, on a daily basis from chaos, right? And when they're facing that particular battle, what some of the things they do or they don't do
Oh,
as a result of that?
well, what they do is They consume because we're taught to consume. More is better.
Mm,
But
okay.
one of my favorite commercials is Charmin, and it talks about less is more.
Less
So
is
what
more.
they do is consume. So they're just like, okay, if I don't know this, then I have to read another book, or I have to go to another seminar, or I have to get another. And then that just makes them more burdensome. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like lifting weights is over time your body gets fatigued. So we emotionally and mentally get fatigued. But what people should start doing, and I'll talk about it in the book Finding Clarity that's coming out in August 2025, is the power of subtraction. And
Wow.
it's what needs to be eliminated in this season. And just like a gardener prepares their crops for the season, we need to start doing those same things in our lives, in the seasons of our lives. So what do I need to remove? And my mother was a minimalist, and I loved her and was annoyed by her as a kid, but she would always clean up everything. But when she cleaned up everything, I could start finding the things that I once lost. And
Mm.
I now practice that. So what do I need to clean up in my life so I can find the thing that I'm looking for? And oftentimes we're looking for our purpose, our passion, our values, and all those things. So something has to leave so something can show up.
Wow. So you mean to say that this whole thing about I've heard like so many years people say, you know, when things close down for you, when things go not your way and things like that, right? Yeah, is that like a sign that things are actually clearing up and opening up for you so other things can enter? Is that what you
Ooh,
find?
that's an interesting way to look at it. I'm not God, but if I had to like take a chance on that one, it would definitely be I believe everything and everyone is our teacher. So
Mm,
if things don't go our way, the easier thing to say is like, well, it's just divine, or it wasn't meant to be. But I look at it like, what is this supposed to teach me?
yes.
So if a relationship doesn't work out, like, what is it teaching me? Or if a job
Yes.
doesn't work out, is it teaching me patience? Is it teaching me alignment? Is it teaching me advocacy? So I look for the lessons in things versus the outcome of things.
Okay. So you're looking at so when you're looking at it from a lessons, right? Where does it take you internally? Is it taking you into the ramification of like maybe like what is it doing to you when you're going from that angle, like versus a like straightforward would be, hey, just don't do that, do this now, right? So more of a what if scenario. But what does that do for people?
It it takes you into a space of a student. And I've been an
Mm,
athlete all my life, and currently I'm an amateur boxer. So one of the things we learn as fighters is like learning from your last fight. So the greatest teachers for me are the people who beat me up during sparring. So like a guy
mm-hmm.
punches me a certain way, I'm like, okay, like I have to be more mindful of that. So when we put ourselves in the position of what is this teaching me, then we can find a lesson, and then there's no longer pain, because pain and suffering is usually tied to our meaning of how things should be. So oftentimes we're so fixed on this should have been this way, I should have had this, they should not have left me, and we're so fixed. But if we're looking, this didn't work out, but what did this teach me? Oh, it taught me patience. It taught me kindness. It taught me surrender. It taught me peace. And if we can see the purpose in the pain, then the pain evaporates and we no longer suffer. So when we put
Mm-hmm.
ourselves in that mind of a student, we find the lessons that teaches us. And when we're learning something, it's like a kid. You're just like, ooh, I learned something today. And it has that moment of progress equals happiness. So the more progress we're making, the happier we become. So it changes our mentality from depression to like joy, just by like, oh, I learned something today and I can share what I learned.
I love that. I love that. So you're coming from a place of like gratitude. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Mhm.
Coming from a place of, and when you're coming from a place of gratitude, you find more clarity. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so those of you who are listening to me, I want to let you guys know that we are having this amazing conversation. and David is really sharing a way to really get clear. And I just want to let you guys know that it's just amazing how he teaches. He's been doing this for a long time, and I just want to make sure that the word gets out there, because he has a book coming out relatively soon, and I want to make sure that he gets to give you one of the books, or sell you one of the books, or maybe even get you into his program. I'm not so sure, but that being said, he has a lot of things which we will discuss a little bit later. But right now I'm just having conversation with David Prosper, because guess what? I want this podcast to prosper. I want you to prosper. I want him to prosper, right? I want all of us to prosper together, and that's why we are doing this, okay? And as you're talking about this formula of getting clarity, right? What are some of the most prominent questions you have learned over the years to ask yourself to get clarity fastest?
Ooh, this is going to be a good one. All right. One of the most common questions that I hear is, what is my purpose? And what am I
Okay,
created to do? That's
right.
a big, audacious question that, like, it takes years to uncover that. But the first step that I would take, and I believe clarity is about your next right step, not to understand everything, but your next right step. So the first question that I would ask that individual or whoever, it would be, who do I want to serve? And it can be as narrow as, I want to serve men, or I want to serve women, I want to serve children. It's starting to, like, start putting you on your radar of the people that you want to serve. And then the second question that I would ask people on the journey of, like, what's my purpose, is, what are my gifts and talents? And that sounds like a very philosophical thing. What are my talents? What am I good at? It's what come naturally to you. Some people it's speaking, some people it's administrative, some people it's accounting, some people it's collaborating. They come and they make things better as a supporting cast versus the main character. So it's finding what comes naturally, like, to you. And then once we figure out who do we want to serve, and then we figure out what are we good at, the next thing was like, what are some opportunities can I serve to either reinforce this idea or to pivot in a different direction? So the main common questions that I often hear is like, what's my purpose, what my vision is? And vision is figuring out all of those things. Who do I want to serve? How do I want to serve them? And what platforms do I want to serve them? And it's magnifying it. It's
Mm.
like listening to music on your phone, and then you put it on a speaker phone, or you put it on a Bluetooth speaker, and now it magnifies it. That's all purpose and vision is what I believe.
I love that very, very much. So let me be clear, right? So you ask yourself, people, number one question is, what's my purpose? And to
Mhm.
solve that purpose, the number one question is, who can I serve?
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, what comes naturally to you?
Yeah.
Correct? What comes naturally to you? So listen to me, guys. Those of you who are listening to me on the podcast, I would love for you to write down here in the chat, okay, in the comment section, and let us know, who do you want to serve? Number one. Number two, what comes naturally to you? And number three, my friend, you want to make sure that you find that gap where people want to be and where they are, and see how you can fill that gap with something that you absolutely love. And when they do that, when people find that, right, do you find that people are more happier when they do it this way versus any other way you tried?
Yeah, 100%. It's like going on a road trip and you're driving through a fog, right? So you're tensed up and you're just like, you're squinting and you're trying to, like, see, and everything is tense. And as soon as you drive out of that fog, your shoulders relax a little bit more. I know what's
Mm,
ahead of me. So when people understand those three things, it gets them moving forward, and that goes from where they're at to where they want to be. And
mm,
it's all about progress, and progress equals happiness. So once
mm,
that fog has come down and they start to see a little bit clearer, like, oh, okay, so I really like doing this. Oh, I've been complimented at this, and it just takes them to that next steps. And this, in elementary we talk about, or in elementary and grade school, it's compound learning, and I believe in compound clarity. So it's like one clear step after one clear step, one after one clear step leads to that ultimate conviction where we're ultimately aligned.
I love that. Love that. So ultimate clarity, and I love what you said. Compound clarity. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. Just so you know, okay. I know. So, but that being said, okay. So when it comes to your book, right? Because you have a book coming out relatively soon, right? What's the name of the book, by the way?
Finding clarity.
Finding
Yeah.
clarity. Okay, great.
Mhm.
And in the book, you are discussing four simple steps that somebody can take, right? Would you like to take us through them really quick and then tell us
Yeah. Yeah.
what the spill the beans before you get the book, right? So those of you who are listening to this, and I'm gonna make him. I'm gonna make him, spill the beans on this podcast because so that he can, so that way you have to read less. Those of you who don't like reading as much, that so just so you know, okay. But that being said, David, I would love to know a little bit more about the book, and let's talk about it a little bit, and let's dive into it. Why did you write this book?
100%. So such a good question. So I want to preface this as like when you get this book in your hand, think about having a cup of coffee at a coffee shop and we're just having a conversation. Literally, you and I are going to have a conversation. I'm going to talk for a little bit, then I'm going to ask you a question, and then you're gonna listen, and it's just like this. Um,
Mm,
but to answer your question, why I wrote this book, I remember walking uh, during the during one of my hikes in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I was asking God, I was saying, what is my purpose? And I've always been fascinated with leadership and talking about leadership. I did a TEDx on leadership, but I was like, what's my thing? What am I passionate about? Oh, more importantly, what am I frustrated about? And as I got to the mountaintop, he said clarity. And
mm,
and it reminded me of this Bible verse that my people perish for the lack of vision, and and vision is symbiotic with clarity. So that became this obsession for me. I was like, okay, like why don't people do great things? It's not a lack of information anymore because we have that. It's not a lack of resources because we have that. It's not a lack of opportunities because we have that. More and more, it's a lack of clarity of knowing what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And um, that became the obsession of like, okay, how can I articulate in a way that it is cohesive for people to digest and then to implement? And going to your second question, but your first question, the cycle, the clarity cycle, everyone starts off as a wanderer. These are the individuals who are just like, okay, I'm in the fog. I know I'm not supposed to be in the fog. I don't like the fog, um, but I don't know what to do. And that next step is asking the right question. And once we go from the wanderer, the next step in the cycle is the seeker. These are the people like, okay, I am looking for answers because I I want to know, like I desire to know. And one of my favorite proverbs um, is the teacher will appear when the student is ready, and that's the seeker. They're ready for the lesson, so the teacher shows up and everyone becomes their teacher. They're attending these networking events, they're listening to all these books, they're listening to podcasts like this, and then they go into the architect. These are the individuals who are designing their lives. They're just like, okay, I've absorbed enough information from so many places. Now I know what I want, I know what I don't want, and they start designing their lives of, and it's like building their own home. It's like, oh, I want this furniture, I want this furniture. And the last step of the cycle is the flow master. This is when the person is living in such alignment and flow, their zone of genius. Things just organically happen. Things that used to bother them don't bother them. Conversations that would emotionally charge them up negatively no longer charge them up negatively. And they are so clear in their vision. It's like a conviction as if it's already happening. So these people typically are the teachers who go back and teach the wanderer. So the cycle is to get through it to help another person. Each one reach one, each one teach one.
I love that. I love that. So there are four main cycles that people go through, right? Essentially, think of them as like, like if you were to take a earth and then divvy it up into four different boxes, if you will, right? And they're going through that those. If you, I love that idea. I love the fact that how you're breaking it down for people. But more importantly, I love the clarity around it, and I love the exercises. Like you read and you do something, you read and you do something, you read and you do something, right? You
Yes.
so do you yourself like to, like if you were learning yourself, in books and things like that, how do you like to learn?
I like to learn through creative expression. So I love analogies. So in the book, there's a lot of analogies because one of the greatest teachers of all time, I'm very biased, is Jesus Christ, and he always used parables. And I love how he took the parables of the day and then he made it applicable for the people to understand, because he would talk about these high level things, but they didn't understand. So he made it very applicable through association. So I
Sure.
love learning through metaphors, analogies, and then I love learning through questions. Like I want to ponder and sit, and that's how the book is written. There's a concept that I share, and then there's a question for you to reflect. And then with this book, I also have like a clarity companion. So now it goes from just reading, pondering to now writing. I want to write out what are some of my thoughts. So it's not just David Prosper giving you clarity. It's Ash getting clarity. It's Harrigan getting clarity. It's these individuals getting their own clarity so they can start being the architects and the flow masters of their lives.
I love that. And so what's the end result, like when they read this book, what would they really end up, end up learning, right, from the book?
So the end product, the outcome as a result of reading this book, you're going to be more confident in your
Okay.
decision making skills.
Okay.
You're going to have a framework to how to filter things, because strategies is timeless, and you're going to have the understanding of what season you're in. And every effective business owner knows that there's summer, spring, fall, winter, and they adjust their marketing based off that. It's going to be
Mm.
the same cycle for our own lives. So, am I in the summer season, right, where I'm a little
Mhm.
bit more out there? Am I in the fall where I need to start thinking about hunkering down? Am I in the winter? Do I need to hibernate and to reduce and subtract some things out of my life? Or am I in spring? This is a time to flourish and expand and grow. So, once you understand when you're in the season, then you make effective decisions long term.
Okay. And so David, like, let me ask you a question, right? So in that case, like when you're going through your season and when you're a little child and when you're growing up, I'm going to assume you are a very serious child, like you wanted to, like, literally analyze or study everything that was there, right? And so, and you were trying to get clarity for yourself. And I'm going to assume that you asked a lot of questions to your parents.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So did your parents ever said, like, like, what do they do when you ask them so many questions?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be raised by my mother, and my mother was a Haitian immigrant who came into this country, and may she rest in peace. Um, and when I would ask my mother questions, she would get she's a Haitian parent, so she would get frustrated. She would get real
Okay.
frustrated. And
Okay.
she was like, Get out of my face, get out of my face, go find it
Okay.
somewhere." So like even in her frustration, she was like, "Go figure it out." Like she like set me on the path indirectly. Like as a kid, I was like, okay, I'm not being hurt, but she said go figure it out. So I was like, okay, challenge accepted. Like when I would say, "Mom, how can I get money?" Like because I was like 12 at the time, and she was like, "You need a job." And I was like, "Mom, I'm not old enough to get a job." And she was like, "Well, go figure it out." I was like, okay. So I went to all of the neighbors and I say, "Hey, can I cut your grass and wash your car?" And then she came back home from work. She see cars in the parking lot. She's like, what's going on?" I was like, "You said go figure it out." So I'm washing cars and I'm cutting people's grass so I can make money. So she set me on a path that she didn't even know that she was doing.
Wow, really? So she was actually directing you indirectly,
Yes.
right? And so what were some of the things you ended up doing as a result of that? Because she actually, sent you on a path and say, hey, figure it out.
The things that I got to do as a result of her saying figure it out was I remember my senior year in high school where I wasn't being showcased as an athlete to a lot of colleges and universities. So I had to figure out how to burn a CD, download a DVD like of highlight tapes using dial-up internet. Like now we have Wi-Fi. I was using down I was using dial-up internet, making a DVD, and then figuring out how to go to the post office and send it to the university, call the university and say, hey, did you get my DVD of my highlight tape? And I literally had to figure these things out. But before I figured those things out, I had to be curious. And through my curiosity, I found clarity. And I believe that's the starting point for anything great is being curious.
Yeah, and so you learn from that a lot more though, right? Because
Yep.
because you did it their way comparably to any other way, correct?
Yes.
You learn a lot more from that. Okay, so when it comes to the learning, okay, and your own journey, your own learning is concerned, did you constantly ask questions to your, maybe your cousins or maybe your aunts and uncles and things of the nature? And were you always a serious child versus your, siblings per se?
Uh, I was playful. Like I was always playful. Like I'm a goofball. I
You're a
believe,
goofball. Okay.
yeah, learning should be fun. But
Okay.
I was fortunate enough, like Dr. Harrigan, who just
Okay.
jumped on, him and his brother Smith Harrigan. Like I would I would sit around these older gentlemen, and they
Mm.
would just have deep conversations. So most of the time, I wasn't even asking questions. I was just listening to how Harrigan or Smith would ask a question. And I was like, oh, I like the way he said that. So I was literally sitting at the feet of a lot of my mentors. And I would sit at the feet of the pastor and just like listening to people ask great questions, come up with great stuff, and then see how they move in audience. And I was like inspired by that. So I would just sit at the feet and just listen. And then as I started growing older, I was like, okay, I can start asking questions. So I had to learn before I could start walking.
I love that. So the more you learned, the faster you got to your destinations. Is that what you found
Yes.
typically?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. I love that. Okay. And so I'm gonna ask you something totally random. Probably nobody has ever asked you. Okay. There's a specialty of this podcast, just so you know. So I noticed that you have a long hair. You
Hmm.
know, did your like is it true or false? Okay, is it true or false? All right. So when you were little, right, what kind of hairstyle did you have? Was it short or long?
When I was up to 5, I had long hair. I had an afro. But after 5, I didn't like doing my hair, so my mom cut my hair off. So I was completely like bald, no
Okay, all right.
hair.
And
Yeah.
when did this start? This whole curiosity about learning and getting clarity. At what age?
At it started around like 6 when I started asking why. Like I was sent to live in Haiti as a kid while my mom was going through a bad divorce. And I was asking like why did she send us here? Like, does
Mm,
my mother love me anymore? So like the question started about 6 when I had to leave United States to go to Haiti as my
mm-hmm.
mom figured things out.
Okay, I see. All right. Yeah. And just so
Yeah.
you know, like I originally came here from India with 20 bucks and no English. So I totally understand, where your mom came from and where you are coming from that point of view, right? Hard
Yeah.
work, dedication. So, I totally understand, what that is. But what I'm getting from that is at the year 5, when she cut off your hair, right? She basically finally cut off the clutter from top of your head, and she
Mm.
gave you the clarity, and then that's when you started to grow. Am I right?
That's definitely one way to look at it. I
Okay.
didn't like it. I didn't like it, but that's one way to look at it.
All right, fine. And then once you started growing wisdom, am I right or wrong in assuming that your braids started growing longer the more wiser you got?
I never thought about it up until this point, but yeah, yeah, it, it
Right.
it it became more rooted. like it became more rooted. So the
Okay, I like that. Okay, fine. And they and the braids that you do, did they get more tighter as you got more wiser?
my loctician who does my hair would say, yeah, it got more tighter and it it,
Okay.
it grew pretty fast.
Well, I'm glad you guys have lactation because look, I have this hair and I have no lactation here. Okay, just so you know, I just want to let you know, I have no I don't even know what to do with this. So there's no way I can think like do what you're doing. So, anyways, but that being said, right? I love the fact that your lactation, really is work. I didn't know there was such thing. Just so you know, David, thank you for teaching me something today. I really appreciate that. I learned something new today. That there's something called lactation for hair. I did not think
Yes.
about that. Whoa, like that's a bombshell on my end. I love that. Okay. So that being said, my friend, right? So as you're doing this, okay, and as you're taking people on a journey, and I really love the fact that, especially with this conversation we are having about clarity, and we are really, really moving people through, right? So what are some of the things that you would recommend people do so they can get clarity as quickly as possible?
I would say number one, OQP, only quality people. So the first step of getting clarity is finding people who have clarity. That's the
Mhm.
easiest way. And you can tell when someone has clarity by how they speak. Are they confident and convicted, or are they uncertain and squeamish? So it's putting yourself in an ecosystem that would eventually enrich your life versus staying in an ecosystem that depletes you. That would be the first step. And then the second step is start asking questions and being skeptical and curious, and then putting yourself in positions where you're you're like what you're doing, like being a podcast host. Like that's the first step of like asking great questions like you're doing. It will set someone off because there's a lot of things that I believe that are dormant in us, and they only awaken when there's questions being asked. And that's why therapists do a phenomenal job, life coaches, coaches in general, because they ask certain questions that draw things out that's already been inside. So being around people who ask great questions and then be a student of people who ask great questions would be my advice.
I love that. So what you're saying is, when you're out in the world, those of you listening, I want to let you know, right? When you're out in the world, right, and you really want to get clarity, right? Don't ask dumb people. Am I right?
You're right. You're right. You
Okay.
you would have. I would have said it differently, but that's true. Yes.
Right? Okay. So they say people who are dumber than doorknob, do not ask them that. Do not ask them anything. My highest recommendation per David Prosper, that is the advice. Don't ask people who are dumber than doorknobs. Okay. Like just want to let you know. You want to ask people who know what they're doing. They have been to a place where you want to go, wherever that is, right? Maybe your dream is to do singing, right? Which is my dream. One day my daughter says, I cannot sing, David, can you believe that? She says, Dad, you cannot sing. Okay. And so guess what, my daughter is a great singer, by the way, so that's why, and she's gonna become a doctor very soon. So that being said, right, and she told me when she was little, she was in choir. Or David, can you believe this? She said that, Dad, you cannot sing. And then I said, sure, I can. So then we start, and then she would give me these things, and I would start the process. And she's like, Dad, there's no way. Even my teacher cannot teach you how to sing, and that's how bad it is, right? So for me to learn how to sing, right, I love learning from her. And then we get into a jam, just so you know, okay. So and then she sings the song, and then I go behind it, and then it sounds like a mad cow like singing, and it sounds really, really bad. Okay, just so you know. So those of you who want to learn how to sing, do me a favor, don't come to me. I am not your guy, okay, to teach you how to sing. I am that dumber and the doorknob for singing. Do not ask me that question, how to sing. I cannot do it. I have no clue how it starts. I don't know what the verses sound like. I can't even finish a freaking, like a, what do you call this thing, a paragraph, right? I forget about things, right? So do not ask Ash Shukla for that, okay? But You can ask me about financial chakras and how to create more abundance through alignment. That is for sure. That I know how to do. I did it for 27 years, and I was managing over $300 million at one point in the financial space, right? So that being said, David, I want to ask you a question, right? All right. So when it comes to helping other people, you say you've been on a TEDx talk, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. And so, what do TEDx people? What did you find about the platform so intriguing?
An idea worth sharing, and
Really?
I've been a TEDx student and junkie since I was in high school, and I was always fascinated in listening to great talks. But what was the most fascinating thing as a speaker, and I was fortunate enough to be a TEDx coach and as well as a TEDx organizer. Um, the most fascinating part is like, okay, like what idea can I share that moves humanity forward?
Mm,
And these these connections of talk move us holistically, and
mm.
it's just a beautiful thing listening to other TEDxers and share their perspective of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine. Like, you are in there. It's almost like your own think tank, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
you're almost like your own think tank. It's like a mini, a whole bunch of David Prospers sitting around each other, learning from each other, right? Little, like, am I right? Like, so you're learning so many things because they're saying some things. And I love TED talks, by the way, just so you know, I absolutely love them. But I've never been on a TEDx before, but I love the talks, right? So I learned so many things, so many
yeah,
interesting things. Like the other day, I was listening to somebody and he was talking about difference between man and a woman, right? And he says, man, thinks we put people in, we put everybody in boxes, and then women has everything connected, and their brains are connected, connecting everything.
yeah.
This must be this, and this must be this, and this must be this, and like he was making fun of that, and I thought it was kind of cute. I thought it was funny. But that being said, I learned quite a bit about brain and how it works and
Yeah.
things like that. So do you find people who think clearly, right, go further faster, comparably to people who stay in chaos all the time?
110%. It's if I could paint two illustration as one person on the highway in the fog, and next person on a highway and it's sunny.
Mm.
Like one person, they're gonna hopefully get there, question mark, in the fog, if they don't hit somebody or somebody hits them. But the chances of them moving faster, more efficiently and proficiently, it's like it's not a thing. But those who are on the highway and it's sunny and they have clear vision in their windshield, they're moving fast. They're getting up to 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. But in the fog, they're moving like 20, maybe 15 to 30 miles per hour because they're just like squinting because they don't know what's happening, and they're overly tense and they can't see what's on the left of them or the right of them. They're only looking what's ahead of them. And but the people who have clarity, they can see everything holistically and they can make decisions effectively.
I love that very, very much. And David, I want to let you know, I really enjoying the conversation. I'm having a great time. I really appreciate you, my friend. And I want to find out, where do people go to get your book? Okay. And how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the honor is mine. This is one of the best podcasts I've ever been on. Like I'm literally, my cheeks are hurting because I laugh so hard, dumber than a doorknob. I'm gonna use that forever. Um, but I would say the spot people can find me is davidbprosper.com. Just put what you see on the
Uh-huh.
right here,
Yeah.
davidbprosper.com. And for your listeners, what I want to offer too is if you use the code prosper20, it's for a limited time only. If you use the code prosper20, you get 20% off all things clarity. So you'll see I have clarity boxes, and you can pick whatever packages. Apply the code today and get 20% off, and start walking in clarity, and take your next right step. And I'm excited to walk alongside of you.
I love that, David. I really, really appreciate you, my friend, for being here. Thank you so, so much. I want to let you know that I'm sure my audience will absolutely love that. And most importantly, my friend, what you shared with us is a truly a gem. So I really want to appreciate you very, very much for that. Okay. So
Thank you so much.
one second, and those of you who are listening to me, I want to appreciate you guys. I want to say thank you guys so much for being here. I love you very much, and thank you for joining. The Financial Chakras Abundance Through Alignment podcast, where we bring you abundance at your doorstep. My mission is only one: help you accumulate either $1 million plus wealth and or build $1 million plus business by really aligning yourself internally and growing from there. And my friend, today's lesson, what David is saying is that when you ask yourself the right question, inside of you, there are seven chakras, seven energy centers. And these seven energy centers, they're like a lock of a combination of a lock, and they begin to open up. And as they begin to open up, you get more clarity. You get to go into nirvanic state that you should be in, where you can live the life of your dreams. And that is what the message is all about today. And I am really appreciative of you being here today. I love you very much, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Okay, abundance through alignment from Financial Chakras. Thank you so much. My wish to the universe that may it give you all the health, wealth, and happiness that you deserve. Namaste and thank you. I'll see you next time. Thanks.